acclaimed director of The Wedding Banquet, the Samuel Goldwyn Company presents Eat, Drink, Man, Woman. The story of three sisters looking for a recipe for romance, and their father, one of the world's great chefs, trying to understand the ingredients. In this family, if you can't cope, you can always cook. Three women with a taste for life. And Dad just trying to stay on the menu. One part laughter. One part passion. With a dash of intrigue, honor, and adventure mixed in. Eat, Drink, Man, Woman. From director Ang Lee and the creators of last year's surprise hit, The Wedding Banquet. Family life as you've never tasted it before.
Hello everyone and welcome to yet another episode of Heroic Purgatory, an Asian cinema podcast. My name is John and with me as always is my co-host Jason. Jason, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine, thanks John. How are you?
I'm doing well. So we're recording one day after Halloween, so November the 1st. Obviously, when this comes out, it'll be a little later, a few days later. But how was Halloween for you?
It was fairly quiet. I spent the day indoors, watching films and writing about them. In terms of Halloween celebrations, the closest sort of my household came to them was my mother and sister carving pumpkins and watching horror films.
I didn't realize that was a thing. The pumpkins were a thing in the UK.
Yeah, we do it in the UK. I think it's a tradition that originally came from Ireland and went over to America with Irish immigrants.
I see. Okay, that's interesting information, I guess.
Yeah, there's a big Irish immigrant community in the UK there, or has been for a very, very long time. So.
Well, I mean, that makes sense. It's right next door.
Yeah. Some of my ancestors are Irish, so...
Okay. Yeah, it was quiet for me, too. I, despite the pandemic, I still expected to have trick-or-treaters, so I bought a bunch of candy, and of course, we didn't have any. So now I'm stuck with a couple bags of candy that I must get rid of somehow. Hopefully not by eating them, although that's a very distinct possibility.
Can you take them into a workplace?
Well, I work from home, so I can, yes, but I'm not sure that's going to help my my situation.
Yeah,
but it's okay. I'll figure something out.
Yeah, we didn't get any trick-or-treaters around my way, but that's, in recent years we've had trick-or-treaters, but I figure that's more of an American thing, and with COVID-19, it's not a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it's not, but I still thought, you can, because I see kids playing outside all the time, because I'm in sort of a suburban neighborhood, and I figured since I see kids outside playing all the time, pretty, like normal, actually. The adults are careful, but I think they are allowing the kids to still be kids. So I figured if they're doing that, it might as well,
be prepared.
Yeah, but I guess that was the line that they wouldn't cross. But it's okay. I mean, I'm mostly upset that now I have all this candy that I don't know what to do with, but I'm not. I mean, I'm fine with there not being trick-or-treaters this year.
Well, it's better than having your house egged for a trick.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's never occurred to me, but I've mostly lived in city apartments, never in suburbs, so I don't know how much of a thing that is.
Yeah. Well, you see it in American movies, so I assume it happens.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of those movies is like I don't know how much of a representation of reality that is, but it may as well be. Yeah. Like to give a movie example, are you familiar with John Hughes movies from the 80s?
Oh, like Pretty in Pink and The Breakfast Club.
Yeah. So I don't like those movies because the way I see it, they don't represent what a teenager is really like. I feel like they're like the way I see them, they're very fictionalized romantic versions of that are far off the mark of what a teenager like. But I mean, the reason they struck a chord must be because they're just, there must be some teenagers out there who feel like that. So I feel like it's the same thing. Just because I did not experience it, that doesn't mean that there isn't someone or some culture out there either in the U.S. or the world that doesn't have to deal with that sort of thing.
I kind of saw them as nostalgia bait from an adult perspective.
Sort of, yeah, sort of.
Yeah, an idealized teenhood that we all wish we could have.
Yeah, and everything is exaggerated, like the drama, the sense of rebellion or anything.
Yeah.
But anyway, well, that's today. That's aside from that. Today we're discussing the episode that we were supposed to discuss last week. But we moved it because of Halloween, and we're going to discuss Ang Lee's 1994, I think.
Yeah.
A drama, Taiwanese drama, Eat, Drink, Men, Woman. However, before to get into that, we have to first do our segment where we discuss what movies have we seen or what books have we read in the last couple of weeks. So why don't you go first, Jason, and tell us about your week or weeks?
Well, I've started reading The Summer of Ubume by Natsuhiko Kyogoku, and it's a supernatural or mystery horror story. It was published about 10 years ago. I've had it sitting on a shelf for 10 years, and I finally got around to starting reading it. And it seems like it's about a hack writer for a tabloid and his best friend, who's a bookshop owner who doubles up as a priest. A Shinto priest, also a Buddhist one. He's just a general master of mysticism and the supernatural, and they're investigating the case of a woman who could be pregnant for about 20 months. So I'm looking forward to finishing that, because then I can start the anime Murio no Hako, which is based on another story by the same author, and I think The Summer of Ubume is sort of like a prequel story.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I was going to ask, because I'm obviously not familiar with the author, but I was going to ask, do they have they had any of their stories adapted into something that I might be familiar with?
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, just this one anime, which is like 6 episodes.
Okay.
Again, I've had it for a number of years. I just haven't had the chance to watch it because I've been waiting to read the book. In terms of what I've watched, because it's Halloween, I've just indulged my love of horror movies, and I've watched a lot of scary stories. Mario Bava films like Black Sunday and Black Sabbath. Dario Argento films like Phenomena and Deep Red. The Purge, the first Purge film.
Oh, okay.
The only one in the series that I haven't seen yet. I've seen the others in the cinema. And I started watching the Nicolas Cage movie, The Color Out of Space, which is based on the H.P. Lovecraft short story, but it's modern adaptation.
Yeah, I should watch that, because I'm generally a big fan of pulp literature from that era. Not necessarily Lovecraft, but that style. So I should check out The Color The Color from Out of Space. Is that the title?
Yeah, it's on Amazon Prime, so maybe it's there in America.
Oh yeah, I know it's available, and in fact, I did plan to watch it at some point. I downloaded the short story. I don't remember if it's a short story or a novella, but it's fairly short. It's very quick, I think, looking at the size of it, because all of his works are in the public domain, or I think most of his works are in the public domain, so anybody can get it. So I downloaded that, but I just haven't gotten around to reading it yet, and I think that's what my plan was, to read the story and then check out the film on Amazon Prime.
Yeah, it's I think all he ever published were short stories in Weird Tales magazine and a couple of other pulp literature magazines.
Yeah, that was the dominant form of the genre. Until even genres like pulp fantasy and science fiction, which is separate but did arise from the pulps, were dominated by short short fiction, and of course even novels were published, but they were generally serialized in magazines. I think novels did not start to become prevalent until after the Second World War, and there was almost a reversal. Then the art of the short stories like slowly started to die, and novels and even novel series became the main thing that people could market.
Okay, that's interesting.
But anyway, that's
Yeah.
sorry to derail you.
No, that's fine. It's always learning something new. The film is a modern adaptation. It's well worth reading. The original short story is actually really heartbreaking. And yeah, I watched in terms of Asian movies, The Horse Thieves, Roads of Time, which is Kazakhstan/Japan co-production.
Is that related to I don't remember if it's Chinese or Taiwanese. There's an 80s film called The Horse Thieves, very famous, very well known.
I don't think it's related to it in any way. It seems like it's a standalone story.
Okay.
I'll have to look into that Taiwanese film.
It was I got it from, I think Martin Scorsese recommended it as one of his favorite films.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, it's The Horse Thief. Sorry, by it's not plural. It's singular, but
singular.
But from Tian Zhuang, and it's a Chinese film from 1984. And yeah, he listed it as a one of his favorite films of the 90s because apparently it's an 80s film, but it didn't come to the US until the 90s. So he did list it there, but again, I don't think it's related. It's just a coincidence. So again, please keep going.
Yeah, and I watched the 1999 and reviewed the film Gemini by Shinya Tsukamoto, which is going to be released by Third Window Films on November 2nd. So it will already be released by the time this podcast comes out. And that's an adaptation of an Edogawa Rampo short story called The Twins. It's a psychological horror done with Shinya Tsukamoto's distinctive aesthetic style. And it's got a lot of class critiques in there as well. It's quite interesting quite an interesting film. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. So I also had some nice viewing experiences the last couple of weeks. I didn't watch as many horror films as I did last time. I kind of slowed down. One notable one that I saw just actually 2 days ago was The Howling 2.
Okay, is that the sequel to the Jack Nicholson?
Yeah, and it stars Christopher Lee.
Okay.
It is terrible in almost every way, but I still had good time watching it.
Yeah.
A lot of gratuitous nudity, and in fact, it even ends with like a very silly montage of like a lot of the nude pieces in the film. I was just free on Amazon Prime, and I was looking to do something, and I just watched it.
Yeah, they've got a sort of a wide variety of horror films. Quite a lot of them aren't so great.
No, but
free to view.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, I could not watch the new Borat film.
Okay.
Yeah.
The election is just around the corner.
Yeah. It's a couple of days as we're recording. We'll be over by the time this is out, but as we're recording, it's a couple of days away. But yeah, I watched the second Borat film. Very funny. I watched it twice. Once by myself and once with a friend. And it was very funny. I don't think it was as funny as the first one, simply because I think the novelty has kind of worn off. But I still did think, despite that, like that was a huge hurdle to overcome. And I think they still managed to do a great job, considering, the fact that they had this whole baggage from the first movie that they had to somehow not necessarily beat, but get over. I watched a South Korean film that I'm actually reviewing for Vicinema called Moving On. About, I don't remember the director. The director, I think, is just a first-time director. This is her first feature film about a family struggling with a divorce and having to move into their parents' so into their grandfather's house to kind of as a measure to deal with economic hardships. And I thought it was very well done, a very moving story. I've reread Ernesto Sabato's novel The Tunnel. It's an old. He's an Argentinian author who only wrote 3 books, I think, in his life. He was a physicist who then became a painter, who then became a novelist. A very strange character, and then he was also a journalist at some point, I think. But this is a novel that I've read for the first time in high school, and I revisit it either every year or every couple of years. It's very short, and it's really easy to read. But it's one of my favorite books to read. That and the Notes from the Underground by Dostoevsky are 2 novels that I visit very, very often. Because they're short, but because they also have a certain appeal that I really enjoy.
Yeah.
The Tunnel especially is just unlike most novels, especially in style of writing. You can this was, I think, his first novel, and you can tell there's almost a scientific quality to it. By the way, very, very analytical and logical way in which he writes this one, and that I think it makes it stand out. And just as I promised last time, I just started reading Piercing by Ryu Murakami. I'm very, very early in it, so I'm not still sure what's going on. I'm still at the part where he's thinking about killing his son. Like the first chapter or so, or he's having he has a fear of fearing his of that he might kill his newborn son, and that's where I'm at right now. So I have no idea what the story is even going to be about. I've read nothing about the novel, but I like I mentioned last time, I really enjoy his style of writing, his straightforwardness. So I think I'm going to enjoy this one. Plus, it's a short novel, and that's always a plus for me. That's like this is at about 200 pages, and for me, that's the ideal size of a novel. I don't like big series or big 800-page novels. That seems to be the trend now. Of course, I really like Dostoevsky, and he writes huge novels, but that's more of an exception than the norm for me.
Yeah, isn't a character in Eat, Drink, Man, Woman reading Dostoevsky?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure the writers were just looking for something impressive to insert in there. I tried to look into into what that might mean, but I didn't necessarily find anything that he did. He doesn't even say what book by Dostoevsky. He just says Dostoevsky, and that just is thrown in there.
I haven't read anything by Dostoevsky, so when that name comes up, all I can imagine is suffering.
Yeah, I mean, he's a surprisingly entertaining author to read. They're not. Especially his longer novels, they almost have a soap opera quality to them, and I say that in the good as a compliment, in that they really draw you in with the characters. Because of course, I mean, like one thing that we forget about these old authors, they're known for their philosophical musings, but they still had to sell stories to the masses. And they had to serialize, and the story had to be gripping from issue to issue to keep the readers to keep reading. So they're very entertaining. Some of his shorter novels, like Notes from the Underground, is literally half of that is a philosophical essay, and the other half is a story, which I think is very good. But you have to get through the first half, which is no story at all. It's literally the philosophical ramblings of a madman.
Okay.
Yeah. But I recommend getting some of his best known stuff and just looking into it, because I think he's a very entertaining author. He and Tolstoy both are.
Okay. Well, I suppose I'll get around to it eventually.
Yeah. And of course, since they're in public domain, there are many free audiobook versions. So if you just don't feel like carrying a 600-page book around you all the time, you can just put it on your phone. Get the LibriVox app that has a bunch of them, and just listen.
That's a good idea. Okay, I'll definitely search one out and try to concentrate on it instead of having it on in the background.
Yeah, that's always a risk with audiobooks, or listening to podcasts, for example.
Yeah.
Before we go into our our discussion of the film, I also would like to go that I have a couple of news items written here, and you can add anything if you want, Jason. First, there's a new Wong Kar-wai film about to be released. I know nothing about it. I didn't read anything except the title. I'm not sure if you have any more information.
No, I was quite taken aback by this news. I haven't read anything about it. I've heard that he's working on a sequel to Chungking Express.
Yeah, so it's called Blossoms, and it's either shooting or about to start shooting, or maybe just done shooting. I'm not sure. I think the article that I'm reading, that I'm looking at here, is a bit old, so it might have already been done shooting. But he's sort of working on a new film. I guess that's all we can say, while also not being completely inaccurate with our information.
Yeah. Okay. It's on the Wikipedia page. It says focuses on numerous characters in Shanghai from the 1960s to the 2000s.
Okay, well, that's a very broad description, but better than nothing, I guess.
Mm.
And we've also had, just this past week, I don't remember if it was during the week or a weekend, so a week from today ago, but the Asian Film Awards were just carried out. And Parasite won Best Film, but it did not win Best Director. Best Director went to Wang Xiaoshai for a film called So Long, My Son, which I know nothing about.
Mm.
Best Actor went to Lee Byung-hun for a film called The Man Standing Next. I think it's a political thriller from what I can see. I haven't seen it. And Best Actress went to Zhu Jiangku, Better Days, another Chinese film. Parasite also won Best Screenplay and Best Editing and Best Production Design, but those are the only 4 awards that it won. I was expecting it to win Best Director. I was really surprised by that. I wasn't expecting it to win Best Actor. I'm not surprised for that, but I thought it would win Best Directors. And I haven't heard of this other Chinese film that did win, So Long, My Son.
Yeah, I haven't read too much about it. Better Days, I had the chance to watch it in February, March, but I missed it. And it's with deep regret, because everybody I've spoken to who's watched it said brilliant things about it.
Yeah, and I've heard of it.
Yeah, it's a reteaming of the director and I think the writer and the actresses, one of the lead actresses from the film Soulmate, which was a massive hit 2 years ago. And I think Better Days is based on a Japanese novel. And it's like this harrowing story about bullying and this girl who's competing to pass her tests to get into better university, becomes the target of some rich bullies in her school, and this street kid protects her, and something bad happens, and it's like they only have each other to protect themselves.
Yeah, there's a Japanese film nominated for Best Film called Listen to the Universe. I'm wondering if you've seen that one.
No, I haven't.
Okay.
But, Listen to the Universe.
That's the title to the Wikipedia. Although when I click on it, there's nothing. It just takes me to the author's page. I'm not sure. I guess it's the novel. The guy who wrote the novel. His name is Riku Onda. I'm not sure if it's a he or a she.
It sounds like a man's name.
Okay.
No. Like, of the Japanese films, like, I haven't actually watched any of them, although I do have a couple of them. I just haven't had the chance to watch them.
I have seen A Girl Missing, who was nominated for Best Actress for Mariko Tsutsui, and I've seen that one. I think I'm pretty sure I reviewed it for V Cinema. A very worthy film to watch if you can get your hands on it.
Yeah, it's
directed by Koji Fukada.
Fukada, yeah, and he's got a whole strand, a whole sidebar at the Tokyo International Film Festival dedicated to him, and that's one of the films that's playing.
Okay.
And yeah, he's a really good director. He's making big waves in the industry in terms of the movies he's making, and in terms of helping to improve working conditions in the Japanese movie world. And if you can watch any, like, he's probably most famous for Harmonium.
Yeah, that and he also stars the same actress, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, and his latest one is The Real Thing, which was selected for the Cannes Film Festival this year.
Oh, nice.
Of course, that didn't go ahead, so it's been playing at other festivals.
Okay. Out of curiosity, do you usually follow the Asian Film Awards?
Occasionally. It's usually I just look at the headline winners and I don't look at the nominees.
Okay, yeah. I've been following this since the very beginning. For some reason, I'm drawn to it. It started in 2006, so it's only been going for about 14 years. And I distinctly remember that another Bong Joon-ho film won that time, and it was The Host.
Okay.
Yeah, and of course at the time, that was in the mid-2000s where South Korean cinema was at the very top. So there was I think for the first few ones, the first 5 or 6 of these awards, the Korean cinema dominated. Followed by maybe Japanese and Hong Kong cinema, and then it became more diverse. In fact, I don't think there was even an Indian film competing until like several years into the awards. Don't quote me on it because I obviously don't remember every nominee, but I think it was mostly dominated by these, Hong Kong, South Korea, Japan, and maybe mainland China, and then it started becoming a wider parts of Asia that began to become more serious contenders into the awards.
Yeah, looking at this year's winners, I can't see any Southeast Asian movies. They're mostly East Asian.
Well, there's an Indian film. There's a Thai film.
Happy Old Year.
There's a what is this? A Singaporean film. And I'm pretty sure I saw a Turkish. Did I? I gotta review my flags, but a Pakistani. Uzbekistani film. Yeah, so there is some diversity. Obviously, you're right. It is dominated by those East Asian countries, but you do see other cinemas pop up every now, on every one category or another.
Okay.
Yeah, but generally I've been following because I've often found myself really respecting their choices and their decisions, and I've always found very good recommendations by looking at either the award winners or because that's one way to awards, whatever you think of awards, that's a great way to get acquainted with new films, even if you don't always agree with their choices. But I've always found that not only I agree with their choices very often in these awards, but they also serve as excellent recommendation, not only the winners but also the nominees. So that's why I've kind of been a fan of this award ceremony.
Okay, I'll keep a closer eye on it in the future.
And also kind of thinking about this, and sorry to delay jumping into our discussion just a little bit longer, but like I just mentioned briefly that when the awards started, it seemed that the Asian cinema, at least when exporting to the outside, seemed to be dominated either by South Korean cinema and maybe Hong Kong cinema, or not so much Hong Kong, but Japanese cinema. But right now, what Asian country do you think dominates the exports of their cinema to the West? And again, we're focused on the West. That might not necessarily be their priorities, but because we're Western viewers, we can only use that as a measure. So what country would you say is currently dominating the market? And sorry to put you on the spot like this. I know you didn't give you any time to think, and I haven't thought about it much myself, but I think it's a nice point of discussion.
Interesting question. I would say South Korean cinema, in terms of what I've seen, Japanese cinema seems to be programmed more because people are more familiar with names, and there are various studios like Warner Brothers who are adapting comic books or manga into what they hope to be blockbuster movies that could appeal to foreign markets. Korean films are still riding on the K-pop wave. Chinese films I see quite often in cinemas. I think that's to appeal mostly to Chinese students who are living abroad. It's a real mix at the moment. In terms of film industries that are positioning themselves to be more global. I suppose, yeah, it's really difficult to answer. I can't say any one in particular. Do you have any ideas?
No, I mean, that's part of the reason why I posed the question, because I'm not sure what the answer is. I know that, for example, the Chinese film industry is using a lot of resources into their films, but they don't necessarily need to export, because they have, by sheer population, their domestic market is wide enough to sustain the industry. And that's not necessarily true for other countries in Asia. However, they do seem to try to export other films. Like, one example was the Quiet Earth. No, the Wandering Earth.
Was that a Netflix film?
Yeah. So it looks like they are trying to edge out, but I still think their most popular movies are dependent on propaganda, like the Wolf series, like the Lone. There's a bunch of military films that they were very popular in China, but they tried to export, but they weren't successful because they're just very propaganda focused.
Yeah. It's you see South Korean production companies making lots of deals with Netflix and getting their movies onto video on demand services, and I think that was a trend that was happening before COVID-19, but has been accelerated by it. In terms of Japan, definitely the anime market is looking towards foreign territories to bring in new sources of income. So there's been big pushes to put a lot of content on streaming services, both classic content and contemporary content, and films that have a wide foreign appeal, but still a lot of movies are made for the Japanese market, and the anime industry is still somewhat reliant on home movie purchases in Japan. But there's a growing awareness of the power of foreign cash, and Netflix is aggressively, and Amazon aggressively moving
and Crunchyroll, which is a very popular streaming service that's exclusively on anime. But okay, so
well, that's going to be, apparently it's going to be bought by Sony for close to $1 billion.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I'm kind of inkling to say it's a good thing for the anime industry.
Sony owns a couple of big anime distribution labels. Funimation is their biggest, and I didn't realize they owned that. I believe they own it, and so that would be great to use an American term, synergy, that they can bring all these titles under one roof. There won't be any competition, though.
Yeah. So there's one thing I'd like to add, though, that when I was thinking of my question, I didn't mention this, but I almost did, that there's an asterisk to it that says excluding anime, because I think if you include anime into the equation, Japan is the clear winner. But my reason for maybe trying to answer the question without including anime into the mix is because, at least what I've observed in the US, the anime audience is very big, but it's also not a cinephilic audience. It's almost separate from what you would consider foreign cinema goers. So I think that the popularity of Japanese anime does not necessarily reflect the popularity of the rest of Japanese cinema to the West. I don't think there's some overlap there, but I don't think there's much overlap there. I don't know if that's the same with what you've observed, but that's just been my personal experience with anime and the rest of Japanese cinema.
Yeah, I there's the occasional. I don't see much crossover between audiences, apart from maybe with Takashi Miike, or when you've got a live action adaptation.
Yeah. Yeah, no, as far as, I would agree with you that it seems like Japan has a higher presence, but I'm not sure, and I'm skeptical to speculate without data in front of me, but I have this gut feeling that the high presence of Japanese cinema in, say, the festival circuit does not necessarily reflect the popularity of Japanese cinema, say, in the average streaming cinema consumption. whereas I think South Korea is doing better there.
I think South Korean cinema probably has broader appeal.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And yeah. So I think it's safe to say that, for instance, for most the first part of the post-war 20th century, from let's say 50s to 70s, Japanese cinema dominated the Western export among Asian countries, and that's kind of evident from its high presence in the foreign category of the Academy Awards. Then around the 70s, Hong Kong started to rise. With the Bruce Lee being sort of on the forefront of that, and then slowly the rest of Hong Kong cinema catching up, and then becoming at their most popular in the 80s, and then they're declining in the 90s, and then South Korea sort of taking over in the 2000s, and those, in my opinion, are obvious trends to observe. Whereas now, with a high prevalence of streaming, and especially streaming services not necessarily revealing their data, their viewing information, I think it's very hard right now to kind of make that judgment and say, oh, these markets are doing very well, or even it might be even more accurate to talk about sub-markets now. But you can't even just talk about Japanese cinema or South Korean cinema. There's parts of Japanese cinema that are maybe doing very well, and other parts of Japanese cinema that are not doing well at all, and same for the other countries in Asia.
Yeah, I broadly agree with that in terms of the different waves of national cinemas taken over. Like in recent years, there's been a major push to sort of rediscover Japanese cinema of the 80s. That was the time when Hong Kong took over. And right now, there's definitely a sense that anime is carrying the Japanese film industry. And,
absolutely.
And when Parasite won big at the Oscars, there's a lot of soul searching in the live action movie world in Japan as to how can we compete with South Korea? What is it we can do to appeal to foreign markets? And there's been a lot of questioning about work practices, international co-productions, and right now it feels like Korea's much more like China. China should be the dominant force. Like you said earlier, they're pumping a lot of money into making lots of like epic movies, but they don't seem to be hitting, whereas South Korean cinema is spreading a lot more quickly amongst streaming services and even in cinemas.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because just the year before, Japan hit it big in the West with Shoplifters, in my opinion, a better movie. Even, don't get me wrong, Shoplifters bored me to tears while watching it. A very slow movie, but it's also an excellent film, objectively speaking. In my opinion, a better film than Parasite, dealing with a lot of the same issues of poverty and capitalism and class differences and all that. But it's just, commercially, I don't think it hit anywhere near the levels of Parasite.
No, I don't think so either. Like Parasite obviously had that Oscar push, which allows broader word of mouth than, say, winning the Palme d'Or at Cannes, even though the Palme d'Or at Cannes is like the highest accolade you can get in the cinema world. I
think Shoplifters, there was quite a lot of buzz at the time. Obviously, Shoplifters got only the foreign, and he didn't even get the win, I don't think.
I think it's like a case that Parasite was an easier sell in terms of
exactly.
story.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Oh, yeah, Roma won that year. Yeah, that's right.
And like Shoplifters, like it's one of Hirokazu Koreeda's best films. It's like the apotheosis of a lot of his themes.
Yeah.
But it's also like it's built on like his career. Like he's one of the best known Japanese directors out there, one of the 4Ks, and so it had that boost. But Parasite was just an easier sell.
Exactly, yeah. And it perhaps helped that Bong Joon-ho. Sorry for mispronouncing his name. People know who I'm talking about. Kind of did his time, paid his price, so to speak, by already doing a couple of films in the West.
Yeah, Snowpiercer and
Okja.
What's the other one? Yeah. Like he's a household name.
Yeah, both of which are entertaining, but I also think inferior to the rest of his filmography. But he did his time, that was the price that he needed to pay. And then he went back and did something that was kind of a return to form for him. And then he knew how to navigate the system, I suppose.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's Koreeda is like this cinephiles director. He's got to be like on specialist programs, whereas Bong Joon-ho's like Snowpiercer is on Amazon Prime. It's on television, and Okja is on Netflix, so it's much more widely available.
Yeah, and like Koreeda is just one of those filmmaker that is I've seen a few of his films, and I just always fall asleep. Can't keep myself from staying awake. There's nothing. I can't say a bad word about him, but oh god, it's really hard for me. I don't know why. Maybe I've just been conditioned like a Pavlovian dog to just fall asleep. These films. The same thing happens with me with Tarkovsky. Stalker. Really? I consider Stalker to be a masterpiece. I love the novel. They're very different. Okay. The novel by the Strugatsky brothers and Stalkers, maybe one of the greatest films that I've seen, but I have to make an effort to stay awake during it. And the same thing with The Mirror or with Solaris.
Nostalgia?
Nostalgia, it was a little bit easier for me to watch. I think maybe that's a little bit more approachable that he did in Italy, I think, after he moved away from the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
But yeah, it hits the right combination of brainwaves that despite me appreciating so much on an objective level, it just puts my brain to sleep somehow. I don't know. So I apologize to anyone who thinks they're very entertaining directors to watch. I agree, but somehow I just can't. And maybe it's because I've never seen them in theaters. Maybe they make films that you have to see in a theater instead of seeing them in the comfort of your own home where you can just get comfortable enough that you can't stay awake. I don't know what it is, but it's just what happens with me all the time.
Yeah, that can make a big difference. Like, these films are made for the cinemas.
Okay, so I think we've talked about other things enough, and I think it's about time we start to the movie we go into the movie that we're supposed to talk about this week, and that is Ang Lee's 1994 Taiwanese film Eat, Drink, Man, Woman. I think it's his third film overall, and the third film of the trilogy known as Father Knows Best. So Jason, why don't you do us the honor of summarizing the film for us?
Okay, so Eat, Drink, Man, Woman takes place in Taipei in the 1990s and follows Mr. Chu, a widower who is a master Chinese chef. He has 3 unmarried daughters. Eldest daughter, Jia Zhen, is a school teacher who is nursing a broken heart from her college days. She has converted to Christianity and is on her way to becoming a spinster when she meets a handsome coach at her school. Second daughter, Jia Chen, works as an executive in an airline company. She has inherited her father's culinary skills, but he has refused to give her the opportunity to pursue a career in the kitchen. And youngest daughter, Jia Ning, is a college student who gets involved with her friend's on-again, off-again boyfriend and starts a relationship with him. So this family gathers each Sunday for a banquet that Mr. Chu spends hours preparing, and it is at the dinner table that the family, each member of the family makes an announcement, and each announcement signals a shift in the relationship between Mr. Chu and his girls as they grow older and more independent, and he negotiates a rapidly changing world.
Okay, so that was a great job. Thank you for giving us a summary. When did you first see this, and what did you think of it?
Well, I think like with the Takashi Miike films last week, Audition, I first saw it in high school. Eat, Drink, Man, Woman, I first saw in high school as well. But I didn't last all the way through because I was more interested in the Miike films. Like, at that time, it's like a short attention span and more interested in horror movies like the Evil Dead trilogy, Dawn of the Dead, Audition, Visitor Q, and so forth. So I think I was a little too young to appreciate it. So watching it for this podcast was probably my second viewing, and I made it all the way through, and I watched it again a couple more times, and I could appreciate it a lot more.
It's funny that you say the opposite has happened with me. I think my attention span, or maybe my patience, not necessarily my attention span, has gotten quicker as I grow up. I was very patient as a teenager. I could sit through 3-4 hour films or read huge books, no problem. But now it's just, if it's not concise, if it just bits around the bush all the time, no thank you, moving on.
Yeah, I think it's a film that I think it gains more, like in terms of how much experience in life that the audience member has. And when I was a teenager, I was probably very inexperienced. So like the various themes in the film, I could appreciate them on a surface level. But I could not get into them. And also because it was a drama and it wasn't a horror film or a crime film, it just wasn't as gripping for me.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with that. I think I like I've mentioned before in the show, I also saw it around high school, but like I've explained it before, I was in the circumstance where I just couldn't wait to get out of the house, to get out of there, to move to a bigger place, to a different country even. And I think that kind of made me connect with maybe the middle daughter the most, who seems, at least in the beginning of the film, the more eager to... or the more worried about who's going to take care about dad. So so the film appealed to me, and it's actually I remember distinctly this was the second Ang Lee film that I had seen. I had seen before this. I had seen the Wedding Banquet, which is I think the second part of the so-called trilogy of his. I don't think I've ever seen the first part, or if I have, I don't remember. But I watched the Wedding Banquet,
Pushing Hand,
something like that. Yes. And I remember being impressed by the Wedding Banquet so much that I immediately sought after the following one. I'm pretty sure I looked for the first one and I just couldn't get it. And I think that's the reason. I think it's harder to find. Maybe not now, but at the time that I did see, it was harder to find. And I've seen this film. I've seen the Wedding Banquet maybe once or twice, but I've seen this film the most out of all of Ang Lee's film. I think I've seen every Ang Lee film only once, and this one is the one that I've seen multiple times. I think I revisit it every couple of years, and it's a film that I enjoy a lot. However, I have to be honest and say that I was not particularly looking forward to this episode, not because I don't enjoy this film, but I appreciate it on such an internal level, on such an almost instinctual level, that I kind of struggle to think about talking points and discussion points. I don't know if that makes any sense to you. I don't know if I mean.
Let's
I don't know if. No. I mean, I've racked my brains and tried to find things to talk about, so I think we'll be fine. But I'm not sure if that's ever happened to you with a film where you enjoy it in such a unique level that when you try to talk about, you kind of come short. But that doesn't necessarily mean the film it's lesser for that reason. It's just you personally can't quite articulate why it is that you enjoy it so much.
Yeah, I think that happens to me with Battle Royale. It's probably Audition.
Okay.
It's like you have so much you want to say, but yeah, it's hard to say.
Exactly. But I did try to kind of maybe break down my thoughts on this, and I do think that the film kind of and I think the film is a very personal story for Ang Lee. I don't know if it's autobiographical at all. I don't want to speculate, but it does feel like a very personal story for him, and maybe that is why it just appeals to many, hopefully not me alone, but maybe to many other people on that personal level. And even you mentioned that you do need some experience in order to appreciate it, because that's at the how the film's emotional arc works, really.
I think the Father Knows Best trilogy is somewhat based on his experiences, especially the ones set in America, where it's like a Taiwanese family trying to adjust to a change in culture and different social norms. And I can see how returning to Taiwan and having a story about Confucian values, where Ang Lee spent so much time in the States, he's returning back to his homeland and he's like seeing his parents for the first time, and like he's considering his own responsibilities to them after time away. Yeah,
and it's almost like in Eat, Drink, Man, Woman, there's not the main family, but her friend whose name is what's her name? Jean Rong, right? played by Sylvia
the Sylvia
Chang.
Chang character.
Yes, and there's always part of her family is in America, and she's always talked about, although we never see them. It's almost as if they're Ang Lee's family, and now this movie is about the part of his family that did move to America, that stayed back in Taiwan, almost.
Yeah, there's a great sort of the film acknowledges like the Chinese diaspora. Like the old characters talk about how they traveled from mainland China to Taiwan, and the younger characters are saying their kids are now growing up Americans, and that's a really interesting aspect that plays into so many themes of the film, as well as being probably based on Ang Lee's own experience as a sort of expat in America.
Yeah, I didn't know he moved with his family there. I haven't read details about his biography. I always assumed that he just kind of moved himself, either for studies or something along those lines.
Yeah, I think he studied film there in America, and actually one of his, he was a classmate of Spike Lee.
Oh, okay.
And he worked on one of his student films, and Ang Lee's talent was noticed, but he struggled to make it as a filmmaker for a number of years. So he met another Taiwanese person, a woman in America, and they married, and they had 2 sons, and she was the breadwinner. And while he was waiting for his film career to lift off, he was like a house husband, like doing the cooking and so forth.
She was a molecular biologist working at a university, I think.
Yes, absolutely, very intelligent person.
Yeah, which is not as someone who does work in academia, is not a very high income job, although the medical benefits are usually good. So at least they had good insurance.
Okay.
But yeah, so that's already a very non-traditional lifestyle for either an Asian person in America or in Asia, or at least for a Chinese person to sort of like blindly, well, maybe not so blindly, I don't know what his prospects were at the time, but kind of being patient and making some sacrifices to follow that kind of a dream instead of getting a more stable job, like probably his parents would have wanted, or at least you get that impression.
Yeah, I think I read that his father was like a principal of a very well-established and highly regarded school in Taiwan, and his father had hoped for a more academic career for his son, but his son didn't quite make the grade, so he turned to movie making, and he was picked up by a big talent agency in America, but it was a question of waiting for that chance to happen. Yeah, and that takes a lot of bravery.
Yeah, and again, of course, his first films had to be funded by Taiwan, at least partially. I think even The Wedding Banquet, which is in English and set in the U.S., it's still either entirely or partially funded by a Taiwanese production company. Correct me if I'm wrong there.
I think so, but definitely Eat, Drink, Man, Woman. That was picked up by a Taiwanese production company.
Yeah, although one of the screenwriters is American.
Yeah. I can't remember the chap's James
Seamus or something.
Yeah, and
James
he seems to be a writing partner for Ang Lee on a number of his films, and I think throughout the Father Knows Best trilogy.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so this film, obviously, food is a big component of this film, and the way I see it, food represents culture. Or represents tradition, or represents even a way of life, because we see at some point the father is kind of either looking recipes or creating recipes by looking at old Chinese books that may or may not have anything to do with cooking. Like there's one scene where he says, "Oh, this herb stimulates sex," or something like that. I don't remember. Enhances the sexual experience, something like that. Like old traditional remedies. I don't know if you remember that scene in particular.
Yeah, it was the scene where you've got these cats in heat.
Yeah, yeah.
The eldest sister, the one on the way to spinsterhood, she's frazzled in the situation, and it's kind of it sort of wrong puts you, like you consider his age and you don't consider him as sexually active person, and then you get that revelation at the end, and it's like, that was foreshadowed earlier. But at the beginning of the film, you've got this pan over a number of photographs of Mr. Chu with various chefs in different garbs. And you get the sense that he studied under a lot of different people to learn Chinese cooking. And when he goes to the hotel, he's like the embodiment of traditional Chinese cooking. And throughout the film, he complains that nobody in a globalized world, nobody can really appreciate it anymore. And also Chinese cooking, China is a huge country and different regions have different specialities. So like dumplings and noodles are more popular in the north, and rice is more popular in the south. And like all of these, and Mr. Chu's got all of this heritage, all of these cultural things that are being put out on the dinner table. And I think if you know more about Chinese cooking, it's quite meaningful because there's a lot of symbolism involved in things like ducks and chickens and so forth. They throw out names of different meals.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same in Japanese culture, where you sit down to have a meal, and certain foods have certain represent certain things, like osechi ryori, which is a meal that people have at the start of the year, like ebi, the shrimp. Has a bent back, and it's like longevity, and it's the same sort of dynamic happening in China as well, where you've got duck, which represents fidelity, so that's used in weddings, for example.
Yeah, and I was gonna say every time they throw out all these names of foods, which a little sidetracking here, it always makes me laugh a little bit because it reminds me of The God of Cookery. I don't know if you've seen that comedy film. It's by
Stephen Chow.
Stephen Chow, yeah. I don't think this is the case, but I always feel like that's a parody of this film. By how they also throw random names of food, but they're always like exaggerated, and their preparation is always exaggerated. So like, that always reminds me of that film. But aside from that, in Eat, Drink, Man, Woman, whenever they throw names of foods at the audience, I always feel like those are they're meant to mean something more than just his impressive knowledge of recipes and his quick thinking and preparing food. But obviously, not being from that culture, it always flies over my head.
Yeah,
and I'm sure someone has probably written somewhere where they explain on this, but at least I haven't found it.
Yeah.
However, there's speaking of the clash between modernity and tradition that is represented by this culture of food, Ang Lee doesn't waste any time. He makes the metaphor, I think, is rather obvious from the very start of the film. The film starts with this over a bird's eye view of a very busy street with chaos and motorcycles and cars and buses trying to get through to their daily jobs, which is, I think, a very obvious metaphor for the modern world. And it was obviously contemporary to Taiwan at that time, which is considered a very technologically advanced country. And then immediately after, he cuts to this very traditional preparation of the first dinner. Then we see a screen with his 3 daughters, and that scene goes on for quite a while. I didn't measure it, but at least a few minutes long. And I have to say, I don't think for as many times as I've seen this film, I don't think I've ever gone through that scene without feeling very hungry at the end of it.
Yeah. So Ang Lee has stated in interviews that he wanted to emphasize sort of like different aspects of food through different senses. So there's like close-ups on steaming hot crabs and
absolutely,
and he wants to get the taste buds flowing.
And what's even more unfortunate is there's no good Chinese restaurant where I live at this point. I had one in my previous city that was authentic, or at least as authentic as we can get here in the U.S. But here nearby, I only have those crappy Americanized Chinese food, so it just makes matters all the worse. That's one reason why it's hard to watch this film, because I just can't satisfy my cravings afterwards.
I think perhaps you need to schedule a holiday to Taiwan once COVID is over.
Yeah, although now there's always the risk that China will attack, so maybe not. But that's also a different topic. But yeah, I also every time just to keep it on the light side a little bit longer, he's preparing. Would you agree that he's preparing way too much food for 4 people?
Oh yeah,
That's
it's like,
way too an elaborate dinner for not only too much, but it's also way too elaborate. No matter how important this ritual that they do is just, and it's got to be like a filmmaker's choice to show it, because there's just, I find it hard that anybody would put all that much effort for an every Sunday dinner.
The daughter has a line when she's with her ex-boyfriend, and she says she grew up in a restaurant setting, so she always cooks too much. And I get the sense that Mr. Chu, you know, he's a master chef through and through. So he's just going to go through all of that effort because he's a perfectionist.
Yeah,
and it seems like a familiar routine, because like at the end of each meal, they're putting everything away into cartons so they can be eaten again on some other day, or they can be handed out to friends.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. That's probably going to last the whole week. I don't think he cooks like that every day. However, I have to say, when I was in grad school, I had a Chinese roommate for 3.5 years, who was a fairly decent cook. And I, as far as I remember, I never saw him just throw something quick in the microwave. Everything that I ever seen him cook was always had some degree of complexity to it, and some degree of, mixing different spices and preparing something more elaborate, way more elaborate than I would do. So I mean, it's also, I guess, part of the culture that, like they don't just throw something in the oven really quick or put 2 slices of bread together with some meat in between and that call it lunch. I don't think they do that like we are to the detriment of our own health, perhaps. Although he did use a lot of butter and oil, so maybe not so much.
Yeah, you do see that younger characters, the more westernized characters, they are eating fast food, or they're working in fast food joints. Like the little girl's name, Shang, I think. Yeah, she and her classmates have got fast food cartons on their desks when Mr. Chu brings like some of his sumptuous feasts in his own lunchboxes, and then his feasts replace the fast food cartons. And there's the youngest daughter, she works in a Wendy's.
Yeah, and he even says at some point that anything can pass for, and he throws the name of a dish nowadays, he says.
Yeah, I think it's like Joy
Dragon something.
Dragon Phoenix or whole shark fin. Yeah, some whole shark fin stuff. Like, it just went bad in a pot. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, that scene is also, I mean, I think it kind of, I mean, one thing that I have to say is Ang Lee doesn't leave things very ambiguous. He makes sure to hammer on themes several times, like the examples with fast food restaurants, like the younger daughter working in one, and him saying later on when this is after he's retired and someone is trying to convince him to come back to the restaurant. He says that there's nobody appreciates this anymore. It's just, you can do anything and they will pass for this dish. And then the shark fin soup, where, obviously the people that they probably order from are a younger generation. At least that's the assumption that I made, and they didn't really know, and they just thought anything could pass for shark fin. They could just throw it in them.
It was a dish created for the governor's son's wedding, and there's a shot where the maitre d' is looking on nervously as the governor's father, I assume it's the father, is eating it, and gives a nod of approval.
Yeah, because he saved it. He knew how to use this fake ingredient to make something else out of it.
Yeah, that was a great sequence where he just storms into the kitchen, he tosses his coat to the side, and he puts on his chef's whites.
And everybody surrounds him like he's trying to like organize the next military attack to, like, I don't know, like kick out the Nazis or something. But he's just trying to decide like what to do with this dish that's gone bad.
Yeah, the general marshalling the troops.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean that's what it looks like.
He's like, I don't know how we're gonna do this, guys, but by the end of it, we're gonna do it.
Yeah, that's exactly what he said. He said it's very like action hero-y line where he says, "I don't know, but I'll figure something out."
Yeah, he's such a good character, and
he's a very good actor.
Obviously, and the actor actually, I think he was in Chiang Kai-shek's army that fought against the communists. I read on Wikipedia page, and he had a career in television and movies playing like gangsters. But he was also in the big Taiwanese movie called the 800 or 800 Heroes.
I don't think I've seen that.
Yeah, it's got Bridget Lynn. It's from the late 1970s.
Oh, okay.
An early Bridget Lynn role, and it's about like this famous defense of a warehouse against Japanese forces in the late 1930s, 1939. Yeah.
Yeah, I, for better or for worse, most of my Taiwanese cinema knowledge is from what they call the new wave, so 80s to 90s.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I have not seen many before that, although perhaps I should.
I have to admit, yeah, I'm in the same situation as you. I just read about his career on Wikipedia.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's fine. People that are interested, even maybe I will probably look it up if we have the time. But yeah, and I think, what I was going to say about this. Oh yeah. So I think this point of, like nostalgia that like Ang Lee brings forth, or this clash between the old and the new, which is very Faulknerian, I find, that he does. I think it makes a good contrast with the film in a strange way with the film that we brought last time. That we talked about last time, and that's Audition, because that also is directly commenting on tradition. However, I think Takashi Miike is very adamant about traditions being outdated and we have to move past them. Whereas I think Ang Lee takes a more nostalgic approach, and I think even though I do think in the end tradition loses, or at least concedes certain part to the new ways of life. Because in a sense, I do think the director himself has a certain aura of nostalgia and longing for the traditions that is sort of prevalent throughout the film.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm using the term correctly, but it's kind of like Deus Ex Machina, which is kind of like you've got this character who's been on the side, who relieves the daughters of the responsibility of looking after the father.
Yeah.
So they don't actually have to, it kind of like resets the balance, so to speak. So like the big conflict between the second daughter and the father is resolved, but it's at the expense of somebody else.
They didn't make a decision, in a sense.
Yeah.
Active decision to do it or not.
Yeah. It's like she doesn't have to sacrifice anything at the end. And the old daughter remains.
Yeah, and I think, I'm if I had to make a choice, I think I'm a little bit more on the side of Miike, where I say get rid of the old traditions, and rather than keep it. But of course, I definitely see the difficulty and nostalgia that Ang Lee perhaps feels, especially as someone who has, for better or for worse, moved away from home, and it kind of misses that part of his childhood, perhaps.
I think that, yeah, again, just to go back to like an earlier comment, like the more experience you have, the more age that you have, the older that you are, like you will recognize the second daughter, like all of the daughters, plights and their desires, and like the difficulty in having a parent who's growing up, and you realize that you've got some responsibility to them, but you've also got like this pull of individualism that you want to go out, strike out there in the world and make your own mark.
Yeah, and I've always had an easier time identified with the middle daughter, but I've always found her character to be maybe the more nuanced, maybe the more interesting. Not that the other two daughters are badly written. I mean, they're excellent characters in their own way, but I've always found them a little bit more archetypal. Both the younger daughter, which is her role is maybe the most minor of the three, but also the older daughter, the Christian one. She also kind of fits slightly into a stereotypical role that you often see in cinema. Whereas I find the middle daughter to be a very original character in a sense. She has that sort of business, abstract businesswoman. She was tapping on the computer doing something, who knows what, the projection of prices, which sounds kind of vague. But in terms of her relationship with her father and her relationship with her love life and her dealing with it, I find her the most interesting, the most nuanced character of the three.
She's definitely the most complex. The younger daughter,
exactly,
like a punchline. Like her two older sisters who've been struggling through relationships. She's leapfrogged over them as she's entered into a happy relationship and she's a mother before either of them.
Yeah, especially the older daughter, I find her maybe the most archetypal, because she's sort of the typical reserved woman who doesn't trust men, but then finds the right guy and just throws herself onto him. That's a very overused trope in cinema in general, not just Asian cinema. So I've always, even though I do think her plight is a little bit merits examination, I still find her maybe the least interesting of all the three.
Yeah, the repression, sexual repression, especially from a religious angle, is quite a common theme in stories. But her storyline, especially when she discovers that the love letters have been written by her students, I think the audience is probably already anticipating that, but that's quite moving in itself.
Yeah, I think the film is very well written in general. So it's not, I don't think any character leaves a lot to be desired, but I think if I had to, I've always found the more to see in the middle daughter than the other two.
Yeah, there's definitely a constant push and pull between Jia Zhen and her father, and that powers the film. And I think
the writers definitely recognize this, because she is featured more prominently, and it's also that's how the film ends, right? He says daughter and she says father, and it just cuts to black, and that's how the film ends, which I love how the film ends, the final shot. It's very moving, and I think it's beautiful. Capitalizes on what the film is really about. It is. I do think primarily it is about tradition versus modernity, but it is also about people navigating relationships in a changing world. I wrote there was this showed at the New York Winter Showcase Asian Film Festival. It re-screened there, and I reviewed it for Vicinema. And the way I said that I think this is a coming of age type of story, but not your conventional coming of age story. It's just a coming of age for a culture as it moves to modernity, but it's also a coming of age for literally for the younger daughter as she gets pregnant and moves into to the house of her boyfriend or whatever. A sort of a coming of age story for the father. Coming of age, of course, is just a specific type of transformation, and every character in this film has to sort of to go past to transform past a certain barrier that is keeping them behind. And I think the middle daughter probably had the hardest time doing that. The father didn't necessarily have a hard time transforming. He just did not want to reveal his transformation out of fear of appearing insensitive to his daughter or something like that.
Yeah, there's like in the scene with the Uncle Wen in the hospital, where he's talking to Jia Zhen, and he comments he says the father has so much love and affection, he's so proud of you, but he can't show it. And you can see it when he's walking around the house, and he's waking up his daughters, and there's always a note of concern, but he always has to assume a role as a sort of paternal figure in their lives.
So to engage in a little bit of fan theories, did you think Uncle Wen knew about his girlfriend, about Sylvia Chang's character that they were dating?
For him to mention, sex and love when the two old men are in the aftermath of the kitchen scene of the wedding, I think that's a distinct possibility. Yeah,
I think it's a little bit too tongue in cheek there to not for that not to be the case.
Yeah, and I think it's because these two guys, they've known each other for a long time.
Yeah, the way they talk, their relationship seems very close.
Yeah, there's a sort of fraternal bond, and Mr. Chu is more likely to confide in him than he is to show emotion to his daughters.
Yeah, but I'm glad you mentioned that scene, because this is very minor, a very minor complaint. But I hate when writers do this, screenwriters or novelists, and it always to me indicates a sort of an amateur move, which would make sense because this was a early in the careers of the writers, but hiding information from the audience that it doesn't make sense to be hidden. and intentionally misleading the audience. Like this film does that a couple of times, like with the father's heart scare. And obviously that conversation between them not actually revealing his relationship with Jirong. There's really no good reason for the audience not to have received that information other than the writers intentionally keeping the audience and even misleading them from finding that information. And I just that might be a personal pet peeve, but I never like that when readers do that. I prefer having a consistent point of view where the audience knows what the character should know in that scene instead of the character intentionally not revealing information.
Like, do you think that keys into the scene where Mr. Chu reveals the relationship with the daughter? Do you think the writers wanted to put the audience in the position of the other family members?
Yeah. I mean, definitely there was that gotcha moment that the author, that twist that the writers and the director wanted to have that emotional response, and it does work. I'm not saying it doesn't work, but it's. I feel like there's
it seems cheap.
It seems cheap, exactly. That's the perfect word for it. It seems like a cheap, and it's something that I very often see amateur writers do, not experienced writers. But it's such a minor. I mean, this film has so much more to offer that is almost not a problem at all.
Yeah, I think it makes second and third time viewings much more interesting because you can go into scenes where there's foreshadowing.
Yeah, and you don't have to, and you've done one over on the film because now you already know the information you should have known, so now you can focus on the other stuff. Yeah, so I mean, it's certainly fine. It's just I just wish they'd handle that a little bit better. And of course, in a film, it's in worse films, this is a lot more a problem. Like, have you ever seen a film where, like, it seems like the whole thing is just done so there can be a twist at the end, even though it never makes sense?
That sounds like quite a lot of Dario Argento's late filmography.
Yeah. So that would be a far worse offender than Eat, Drink, Man, Woman is. But it contains an element of that. Yeah. So, okay, moving on from that. I said my piece. I feel a lot lighter now. So now we can move on to the things that this film does excellently, and the things that maybe makes you ask questions. And of course, there are certain things that are maybe perceived differently in Western culture versus Asian culture. So that's a factor that we must consider. But what do you think of the age difference between the relationship of Chu and Sylvia Chang's character, Jin Rong?
I think it plays into the writer's intentions of wrong-footing the audience. Like, we view all the characters, like, I think we would be in the position of the daughters as viewing, and Sylvia Chang's character's mother as viewing it as wrong, that such, like, a person that could be her father is actually her lover. Yeah,
and in fact, well, I don't necessarily know that Sylvia Chang thinks it's wrong, except she's very embarrassed. And obviously it's not culturally accepted there because otherwise it wouldn't be a source of conflict.
It seems like a natural bond between them, but like one of the themes of the film is age, and we consider Chu's age. Like, I think the actor was 64 when he filmed this, 64, 65, and we feel like he's becoming weaker as he grows older, and so it seems unlikely, and then like it plays into that theme, and it plays into our surprise at the very end.
Yeah, it's also part of the misdirection that I just complained about earlier. He's not really, he's very healthy, but I guess Ang Lee just chooses to show him like complaining and getting all those massages. Although I'm pretty sure he's getting the massages because just Jin Rong's mother is driving him crazy.
Yeah, it's not a coincidence that he gets a massage after he's had a conversation. Yeah,
and you can see it in his face. That's
just
quite
needs
funny.
To get the tension out.
Yeah, and he puts that towel when he's in the bath, and he puts that towel, and you can see him like sighing very heavily into that scene. So he gets quite a bit of comedy out of her. Like, he does a good job at using her. Well, she's also somewhat of a stereotypical Asian mother personality, but he does get quite a bit of mileage out of her.
Agreed.
Still, even like Jinrong mothers, we would never get a hint that she ever approved of the relationship. The last we see of her, she's fainting, and of course, it cuts to a year later, and we don't know what happened. In fact, I would go as far as to say that we don't even know if their daughter ever, his daughters ever approved of the relationship. They probably accepted it. I mean, that's evident enough, but it's never clear whether they ever approved of it.
I think the general tone of the film is like if bouncy. There's a lot of comedy. There's just as much comedy as there is drama, and I think it's safe to assume that like everything's settled at the end. Like Shan is with her grandmother, and Mr. Chu is going to pick her up later, and everybody's sort of relaxed. They're living their own lives now.
I think so. I mean that I would agree with that. There's also the only thing that causes me a little bit of reservation is I get the impression that like the daughters don't see that their father as often at the end, but of course that may as well be that they've moved on with their lives, not necessarily because they don't approve of their new stepmother.
Oh yeah, that's definitely. I think that's like one of the things about the film is like he has like there's this sense that these daughters have to be married off. They have to live their own lives. It's like a Ozu film, I guess, where you're waiting for, like there's this tension between the father being left behind on his own and the daughters moving out for their own happiness. And I get the sense that with Sylvia Chang's character Jinrong taking over, like sort of caretaker role, I suppose, she relieves the daughters of having to take on that responsibility that Confucian tradition would demand of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and of course, I'm glad you mentioned Ozu, because I think just like Ang Lee, despite however Ozu films may end with the daughter choosing the non-traditional route or whatever, there's still like clearly in Ozu's voice as presented in the film, there's clearly that sense of nostalgia and that sense of longing for the traditional way, sort of hinting that even though we have to accept the change, part of me thinks that, or part of Ozu and part of Ang Lee thinks that somehow the traditional ways are better. There's like that sense of sadness that we've had to accept this new life, like except the or even the older daughter. All of his daughters choose non-traditional parts. The younger daughter doesn't even get married; she gets pregnant and moves in with her boyfriend. The younger daughter the middle daughter doesn't get pregnant enough, doesn't get married at all, and no hint that she might even get married at all. And the older daughter maybe does follow the more traditional route, but it's kind of too sudden. And maybe when she was expected that she would take care of her father the whole time, and she just turns on 180 and says, "Bye-bye, I'm out of here." Yeah, but even like that happens, the father has to accept that, and the audience is to accept that. But just that sense of sadness at the end kind of makes me believe that Ang Lee thinks like this was the ending that we needed to have, but not necessarily the ending that I wanted for this family.
I think that's a sense that's emphasized by returning to the family home.
Yeah,
after
exactly.
It's been stripped of furniture and it's been sold off, and everybody's separate, and you can't help but feel that sense of sadness and nostalgia.
Absolutely.
For those happier scenes, livelier scenes of family being together that you saw earlier.
Yeah, and I do think that's still secondary to his trying to mend the relationship between father and daughter, which was strained from the beginning of the film, and presumably for their entire lives, if based on some of their conversations. And I do appreciate him kind of focusing on that more and trying to make that at the forefront of the drama in the film.
Yeah, I agree. It creates an interesting tension in the film, and although it's cleanly resolved in a way that is way too convenient.
Yeah.
I think that tension still remains, although the sense that family dynamics have been healed at the end when they're able to say father and daughter.
Yeah, and I think that's maybe the one difference. Well, in this case, the one difference between Ang Lee and Ozu, because I feel like Ozu in this case would not have given the father that exit that convenient exit of he'll end up all the daughters end up moving away and the person who was supposed to take care of him doesn't, and conveniently he has another wife now, so he'll be fine. I feel like Ozu would not. I can't remember a specific name of the movie that has a similar plot, but I feel like Ozu would not. The father would, if this indeed happened, the father would end up alone and somehow managing, because that's the cycle of life in Ozu's films, whereas Ang Lee is maybe a little bit more optimistic.
Yeah, it's like Chishu Ryu and Setsuko Hara are like Ozu's father and daughter combination.
What's the name of that film? Well, they've done father and daughter in multiple films, but what's that one name of that film where specifically the plot on is the daughter doesn't want to get married, but she has to get married.
And he's trying to marry her off.
Yeah.
And he's at the bar at the end.
Yeah.
And he's drinking with a friend. I don't know. Is it something like Life's a Series of Goodbyes or something like that? Is that like?
I think it's one of the season movies.
Okay.
Spring something. Yeah, I'm sure this is very fun for the audience while we are trying to struggle to remember the title of a film. But for some reason,
I can picture the ending. But
yeah, me too. I remember that. I think that's the most recent Ozu film that I've seen. That's why I remember it so vividly.
Yeah, like there's Setsuko Hara's wedding, and then it's Chisu Ryu alone, at the bar with a friend, and I just can't remember which film it is.
Exactly, but anyway, maybe
could be any number of films.
Yeah, no, of course. A lot of his films are similarly themed, so it's not. We're justified in forgetting it. Maybe it's late spring.
An autumn afternoon.
I think it's one of the season. So late spring. I'm reading the description. Noriko is 27 years old and still living with her widowed father. Everybody just talked her into marrying, but Noriko wants to stay at home caring for her father. So I do think it's late spring, 1949. Yeah, I don't think it's an autumn afternoon because I distinctly remember being
no. Setsuko Hara's not. But
this is also the same plotline. An autumn afternoon reads an aging widower arranges a marriage for his only daughter. So very similar, but I guess it doesn't have that plot element where the daughter doesn't want to get married. I don't think I've seen an autumn afternoon.
I think you're right. It is late autumn,
late spring.
Late spring. Oh, there's the same plot in quite a few.
Yeah. But, I think he has early summer, late early afternoon, late spring, an autumn afternoon or something. A lot of these seasons that are very similarly. He's sort of like his view of, I think it's Buddhists, the source of viewing life as seasons, and I think that's why they have similar plots because. He's kind of using that Buddhist theme of equating life cycles or stages of life to seasons.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like late spring is, youth is the spring of one's life, but he's close to the end of that. That's why they're kind of hurrying to marry her. But anyway, yeah, so that it's very similar to that film, but I think that's the one distinction between Ozu and Ang Lee, that Ozu does not give his characters that easy escape that Ang Lee does. And I'm not necessarily holding it against him. I do appreciate his optimism, but I do agree with you that it is a little bit slightly a cop-out and slightly a convenient escape to what would have been maybe an unhappy ending for the family.
Yeah, and I think I agree with you, yeah.
You did mention earlier, and this is maybe jumping around a little bit, but you did mention earlier about the main actor. What's his name again?
Seung Lung.
Yeah.
Forgive pronunciation.
Yeah, I could swear that both the middle daughter and the older daughter, they looked familiar to me, and I could swear that I had seen them before, and maybe I did, but when I looked at the filmography, I didn't recognize any of the films. Well, I didn't recognize most of the film. I think I saw some Tsai Ling there, that another famous Taiwanese director that I've seen a couple of films from.
Yeah, the Yu Wen Wang, who plays the youngest daughter, she was in Rebels of the Neon God, I think.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. I do think that the older daughter looked familiar to me because she looks a little bit like Lucy Liu, the American actress.
But Sylvia Chang, just to go back to our talk, was it Police Story?
Oh, yeah.
She was all about Ah Long.
Okay, yeah, okay. So it's starting to so there is a little bit of family, of of familiarity there, I guess.
Yeah. That like you, my knowledge of Taiwanese cinema is like pretty contained in the modern directors. So
For me, it's not even modern. It's that specific period of like I think it's known as the New Wave. Although again, don't quote me on it. But like 80s to 90s, I don't think I kept up with Taiwanese cinema like in the late 2000s, and even certainly not modern Taiwanese cinema.
yeah, I started watching Taiwanese cinema thanks to V Cinema, allowing me the chance to review films, black and white films from the 1960s, experimental films. But definitely Ang Lee, Edward Yang, those are the names that I'm more familiar with.
Yeah. And even Ang Lee, I think, has not done any Taiwanese films since. Is Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon a Taiwanese film? I definitely know it's an American
definitely shot
production.
in China.
Yeah, I think he kind of moved to China after that. I think he did Last Caution in China.
Or was it Hong Kong?
That's a good point. I think it's Chinese, but maybe 2007. I think that's. It doesn't say. It says country: United States, China, and Taiwan. So I guess it was a co-production.
Yeah. It's set in Hong Kong, so and in Shanghai. So at least part of the film was
Okay.
Hong Kong. Yeah.
Okay, I mean, still, and I think that's his last Chinese language film that he did. After that, he's only done English speaking films, I think.
Life of Pi, Billy Lynn's Long Halftime Walk, Gemini Man. The Gemini Man was savaged by the critics, but I can remember while in work, I talked to a mother and her son who had just seen it, and they really enjoyed it.
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen the last film of his that I saw was Life of Pi.
Yeah, what did you think of that one?
Mixed feelings. I think it's a gorgeous film to watch. Beautiful cinematography, beautiful shots.
Beautiful CG.
Yeah, well, inevitable. and a great job at keeping a story that would be very hard to make entertaining to actually keeping it interesting. That and the 127 hours, I think that also did a good job at that one. I don't know if you've seen 127 hours.
I don't think I have.
It's the film with I keep blanking. I think it's directed by the guy who did Trainspotting. What's his name?
Danny Boyle, about the guy that got trapped.
Yes.
In the desert. James Franco.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. So that's a similar film where you have like one person is to essentially keep your attention for 2 hours. And I think he did very good of that. The story, however, and this might be a virtue of the original novel, I found it very anticlimactic that's the best way I put it out. It's I don't know. I missed the point. The film was trying to make some sort of point about religion, and I just completely missed it. I didn't get what he was trying to say, and I don't think he did a very good job at making that point. Otherwise, it was a very good film.
Yeah.
Okay, so we talked about other things, but is there anything else that you think we could discuss? We could add about Eat, Drink, Men, Woman.
What did you think about the time frame of this film? So. Did you find it troubling at all? For example, like, it feels like it's all done in a compressed space of time, but this storyline feels like it's done in a compressed space of time, like a few weeks, but it goes on for quite a few months.
And a lot happens, yeah.
Yeah, like in one scene, the youngest daughter meets like a guy, and then a couple of scenes later, she's announcing she's pregnant. I was just like totally taken by surprise. Like, how many months have elapsed?
Yeah, I think that abruptness is part of the film's point, and maybe the director, obviously not very experienced at this point. Maybe he didn't do a great job at kind of conveying that, because the film does give you the impression that this family has been in a sort of a stalemate for a long time, and then like in a matter of weeks, everything just changes.
Yeah.
In fact, there's even scenes. I can't remember exactly what scene I'm thinking about, but there's even scenes where you think like it's not even the same day from one scene to another, but the characters are wearing the same clothes, so it's immediately after actually. But it just feels like so much has happened that that is like it should be longer, but it's just everything happens very quickly.
Yeah, it's like like with a Japanese film, for example, you might have the seasons passing by and trees like cherry blossoms blooming, and then the leaves falling off for autumn, or an Obon festival to mark the passage of time. Whereas this one is just like leaps and bounds through months. So I was quite interested in finding out what you thought about it.
I don't know. It doesn't necessarily bother. It does not necessarily bother me. I think it's I think it's maybe perhaps a risk that Ang Lee took in choosing to edit it this way, or maybe the editor, who knows. But I do think the abruptness is part of the point that, like these characters' lives change just so fast, and it's just by the virtue of compression, it just perhaps if the same things happen over a span of 3 years, maybe that's just normal life and it's not worthy of the drama. But by the fact that it happens so quickly, that is what it gives, what makes the conflict for the story. Yeah,
and it also adds to the sense of the youngest daughter's storyline being a bit of a punchline.
Yeah, I think Ang Lee is perhaps aware of this, because that's how, when they make the announcements, that's how it happens. The younger daughter just blurts it out in one breath, and then it just cuts to her driving away in a taxi.
And it's a scene repeated with the oldest daughter.
Exactly, and it's even funnier there because she just drags him in, he says his thing, and then they like ride away in his motorcycle. So I do think that's intentional. Perhaps it doesn't hit all the right notes as it should, but I do think like it was. It's an interesting choice by Ang Lee as a director.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. Completely unrelated, but did you notice the Ji Rong's mother, Cecilia Chang's mother? There's one point, and I noticed this in my so when I watched a couple nights ago, she's eating an orange, and she's eating like the little white strands. I don't know what you call them.
Is that the pith?
I don't know what a pith is.
Is that like the inner peel?
Yeah, or the things that are on the outside of the orange, not the skin, inside the skin. But
yeah, I think it's the pith.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah, and I believe it's like it's got a lot of nutritional value.
Does it? I've never seen anyone. Don't quote me on that. I've seen people use the skin for various purposes and maybe eat the skin, but not that white stuff. And that's what she does. She's holding the orange and she's clearing the pith out, I guess it's called, and is eating that, and then she eats the orange. I don't know why it bothered me so much in this.
Because we're taught to strip it just to get.
I get rid of that. I get rid of all of that. It doesn't taste good at all. Maybe it's nutritional, as you say, so that would make sense. I thought it was maybe like a statement from Ang Lee, like kind of conveying in a more visual way how wrong she is for a cook, because she doesn't even know how to eat an orange.
Yeah.
So I thought maybe that's it, but maybe you're right. I mean, that would make more sense that, maybe other cultures don't throw that away because it has nutritional values. I just get rid of it because it tastes even worse than the skin, I think. It's just weird, stringy.
Yeah, I'm going to have to look into it, but I'm pretty sure I've read somewhere that it's got a lot of nutritional value. And if anybody knows otherwise, feel free to leave a comment on the webpage and a link to an article about it.
Okay. So yeah. I mean, a great film altogether. So we didn't do this last time because we forgot. But how many stars would you give this, and where exactly? You don't have to give an exact rating or anything if you don't want to. But where would you put it in the collection of Ang Lee's filmography?
I've only seen a few of Ang Lee's films, and this is probably my favorite one. I'd say it's a really good entry point into Taiwanese cinema, perhaps Chinese cinema as well, because
I would agree with that.
A lot of themes that are pertinent to Chinese culture, Chinese diaspora, Confucian values, and the history of Taiwan and China. And like the drama, I really enjoyed it. The comedy was fun. I the characters were all sympathetic and they were all complex enough to keep me engaged. And I feel like this drama is like universal. If you know more about Chinese culture, if you've got more experience in life, it gains more in depth. Like a richer subtext comes out. And so it's 4.5 stars. Yes, it would be a good entry point into Asian cinema for people. At the very least, you get the foodies who love seeing depictions of meals on the big screen interested.
Yeah. I would absolutely agree with pretty much everything you said. I think filmmakers like Ang Lee are perfect for these. Not that they have to make these kind of films, but they are, whether intentionally or unintentionally, perfect for these gateway films, because he clearly understands how the West works, but he also understands how the East works by virtue of growing up there. Because otherwise, I don't think he would be as successful in making American films as he has been.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think this is an excellent gateway film. It's enhanced by knowledge of Chinese culture, but it's also very enjoyable for if you are not. When I watched it, I was very ignorant of Asian culture, and I still got a lot of mileage out of the film, because I do think, like you said, most of the messages are universal, and the relationships and the evolution of especially the middle daughter and her father and their interactions together.
Mm-hmm.
And like you, I would put this is my favorite Ang Lee film. I've seen, I think, taking guess, I think I've seen more Ang Lee films than you have. I think I've seen everything except the very first one, Pushing Hands, and his last two ones, Gemini Man and the one that he did before one, which I think it's a war film or a military film. But because I'm pretty sure I've seen the trailer, and I think it was very, very underperforming both critically and in the box office, although that's what I remember.
Yeah, Billy Lynn's Long Halftime Walk.
Yeah. I've even seen The Hulk, I'm sure you've seen that too.
Yeah.
Not great, but not terrible.
Well, it's good to see an author tackle a comic book movie.
Yeah, before that was even a thing.
I can't wait to see Scorsese do the next Avengers movie.
Yeah. I want him to do Spider-Man, because it's set in New York, so at least he'd know the city. I'd like to see Spider-Man taking down, a Al Pacino type or a Robert De Niro type mob man.
Yeah.
and try
Spider-Man crossed with Goodfellas.
Yeah. Like Jason versus Freddy or Aliens versus Predator. Spider-Man versus the Irishman.
I would like to see that too, but would it be a de-aged Robert De Niro?
Oh, like a de-aged Robert De Niro with a de-aged Tobey Maguire playing although he's not that old, so I guess he could pull it off with makeup.
Into the Spider-Verse, I suppose.
Yeah, and they could bring Marlon Brando's face as CGI, just like they did with Princess Leia.
Or Rogue One, where they brought back Peter Cushing, I think.
Yeah. Which I'm more upset about Peter Cushing than I was upset about Princess Leia, because at least they had committed to her as being a character, so they kind of had to do it. But Peter Cushing, there was no reason to do him at all. Just let him rest in peace.
I think Rogue One was the last Star Wars movie I watched, and I lost interest after that.
I haven't seen all of them. I haven't seen the last one, but I would agree. I think I enjoyed Rogue One the most out of all of them.
Yeah, it's got a different feel to the other Star Wars movies. A friend of mine who's really into superhero movies, Marvel movies, he's very excited that the next Spider-Man movie reunites Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, unites Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, and the new Spider-Man.
Wait, how?
I'm not sure how, but apparently they're all on board to do the same project. And Sam Raimi, the guy that does the guy that did the Evil Dead trilogy, and A Simple Plan.
Well, he did the first two Spider-Mans, which, in my opinion, they're the two best Spider-Mans. At least the second one. Yeah,
I would agree, and so would my friend. That Sam Raimi's doing the next Doctor Strange. So that's your chance. That's another chance to see an author tackle a comic book movie.
Yeah. I mean, I've never been into these comic books. I watch them because usually, almost always, it's because my friends want to go to the theaters and do it, and I just hang out.
Yeah.
I would say, however, that like I used to be a big fan of the '90s animated Spider-Man, and which is, from what I understand, very, very faithful to a lot of comic issues. And they do go into different multiverses into that. So Into the Spider-Verse is not the first one to do that.
Okay.
That was part of the original story where Spider-Man goes and meets a lot of his alter egos. So Marvel adapting those kind of stories would not be out of context. Like those are in the original comics.
Yeah, I watched the animated. I probably watched the same animated series that you did. My patience for comic book movies isn't as great though. I think the last one I watched was probably the first Iron Man movie, and I haven't watched any since.
Yeah, same. It's not for me, but if people enjoy them, I have no objections against that.
No, they're killing cinema.
That's also a concern, but at least if people are going to the cinemas to see this, that's better than not going to the cinema at all.
Absolutely. Hopefully when cinemas reopen, like all of these comic book movies that have been kept in waiting can bring audiences back to save the big screen.
Okay, so I would like to bring up my other controversial opinion because it's related to Ang Lee. And hopefully people don't hate me for this. But like I said, became familiar with Ang Lee in high school. This was the Wedding Banquet was the first one, and then I watched this one, Eat, Drink, Man, Woman, and I would put this on top of me on top of the list. And then I would put Brokeback Mountain after that, like second, because I really enjoyed that too. But then I watched, I think either the fourth or the fifth Ang Lee movie that I watched still in high school, and I haven't seen since, was Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. And I hated that movie. Again, it's been more than 10 years, almost pretty much exactly 10 years since I've seen it. I remember seeing it because all of the hype and the Academy Award nominations. And I just remember thinking, why do people like this? This is terrible. And that's my final controversial opinion for the night. I did not like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Yeah,
but I was in high school, and I was also don't remember at all. So maybe if I watch it now, I would find it great. So please keep that in mind.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest wuxia fan, and I was a little bored by all the antics in the deserts. I was always more interested in Chow Yun-fat's character. I suppose that maybe if I watched it now, I'd have a different opinion as well.
When did you last see it?
Probably when it came out, at the same time.
Oh, 2000. Okay. No, I've seen it later
because
than
it was such a huge thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and its reputation stayed on. It's not like it died like a lot of things do. I mean, it's still considered highly regarded. Okay, so is there anything else that you'd like to add before we close this episode?
No, I think I can't think of anything else. I think I said enough.
Yeah, and it's certainly a film that I would wholeheartedly... I didn't give my rating 5 out of 5. Just because it's so accessible, it's so enjoyable, and I think you don't have to be familiar with Asian culture, even Taiwanese culture, to enjoy it. I think its themes are very universal. So seek it out and watch it. If you're in the US, you can probably get this from your local library. It's a film that's very easily available. In fact, I didn't even have to go to the library. I could stream it from my library's website. I'm not sure if services like that are available in the UK. I would imagine they are. Yeah,
I believe so. Like, I only get books from the library, but there was a period in time when I was getting like DVDs, Takeshi Kitano movies.
Oh yeah, I mean DVDs certainly, but you can also stream from the library. Libraries here have subscribed to certain streaming services, and this is where I watched it actually.
Okay, I'm gonna have to look into it.
Yeah, so Hoopla and Overdrive and what else? There's another one. There's another one that is like exclusive to libraries, and as long as they work with your library card, so as long as you have the library card, you have access to these streaming services. And this one is available on Hoopla, so check it out if you're in the US, and I'm sure it's easier to get if you're in the UK as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is easy to get. Yeah.
So that's it for this episode of Heroic Purgatory, an Asian Cinema podcast. Please follow our website, follow us on Twitter, and I'll put links to that as usual in the description and in the website. And please watch the movie, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.